Jews need conversion. They need to know that Messiah is coming, and the Bible tells us what's going to happen.
You're going to have to take the Word of God and get to know God so that the fellowship...
Kay Arthur heads an organization called Precept Ministries in Chattanooga, Tennessee. She brings thousands of pilgrims to the Holy Land and has an answer for every question.
This is what confuses me. Here you are, a great friend of Israel.
Yes.
Great friend of the Jews.
Yes, and they would tell you.
But what you're saying is that some of them are going to be destroyed and some of them are going to be converted.
But see, I'm not saying it. God's saying it.
The Christian fundamentalists believe the only Israelis who are really listening to God are the hardline Jewish settlers who live on the West Bank and Gaza and refuse to move. The Christians trudge up to these settlements as if they were making pilgrimages to holy shrines. That's because they and the settlers share a core conviction.
You believe that God gave the land of Israel to the Jewish people.
I believe it as much as I believe I'm sitting here looking at you right now.
It is theirs.
It is theirs. Every grain of sand between the Dead Sea, the Jordan River, and the Mediterranean Sea belongs to the Jew.
That includes the West Bank.
That includes every
It includes Gaza.
Every bit of it. Every bit of it.
And the 3 million Palestinians who live on the West Bank and Gaza? McAteer suggests the bulk of them could be cleansed from this God-given real estate and moved to some Arab country. Nothing can come between the Jews and their land. In fact, many fundamentalists believe that when Prime Minister Rabin signed the Oslo Accords and offered to trade land for peace, it was not only a mistake, it was a sin.
They were going against the Word of God. You cannot go against the Word of God. And I believe that God stopped it.
By?
Well, by the things that happened.
By the assassination of Prime Minister Rabin?
If God wounds and he heals, if he kills and if he makes alive, if he is the Lord and he does these things, then no person dies accidentally.
You think Rabin was being punished for getting involved in the peace process?
I think that God did not want that Oslo Accord to go through.
God save us from these people.
Political analyst Jesse Alfer served 12 years in Israel's intelligence agency, the Mossad. Later, he became Israel director of the American Jewish Committee.
When you see what these people are encouraging Israel and the U.S. administration to do, that is, ignore the Palestinians, if not worse, if not kick them out, expand the settlements to the greatest extent possible, they are leading us into a scenario of out-and-out disaster.
But many American Jewish leaders who used to shun support from the Christian right have changed their minds. Abe Foxman is head of the Anti-Defamation League.
Do you think Israel is in such dire straits that you need to get support from whatever quarter you can?
No, I wouldn't put it that way. Again, this quarter, these evangelicals have been supporting Israel throughout. Some for religious reasons, some for theological reasons, some for political reasons. Doesn't matter, they've been there.
When you're standing next to a Christian evangelist at a pro-Israel rally, does it bother you that in his vision of the end of days, you, Abe Foxman, will disappear or be converted?
I believe, I'm waiting for the first coming of the Messiah. He's waiting for the second coming of the Messiah.
Detail?
It could be a detail, but that doesn't change the fact that on this specific issue, on this day, we come together. And what is the issue? The issue is fighting terrorism.
Welcome, Mr. Prime Minister. Glad you're here.
That's precisely what the Bush administration and the Israeli government have been saying since September 11, that they're allies in the war on terror. But the Christian fundamentalists go further. They say it's not just an alliance between nations, but between religions.
I think a lot of Muslims feel these days that Christians and Jews are getting together and ganging up on them.
That's true. I'm sorry that's true. I hope it will cease to be so, but I think that is the fact right now.
Falwell believes most Muslims want to live in peace, but he says the lines have been drawn. Christians and Jews on one side, Muslims on the other. And he says those lines were drawn more than 1,000 years ago.
I think Muhammad was a terrorist. I've read enough of the history of his life written by both Muslims and non-Muslims, that he was a violent man, a man of war.
So the same way that Moses provided the ultimate example for the Jews, and same way that Jesus provided the ultimate example for Christians, Muhammad provided the ultimate example for Muslims, and he was a terrorist.
In my opinion, and I do believe that Jesus set the example for love, as did Moses. And I think that Muhammad set an opposite example.
What frightens Yossi Alfer is that he hears much of Falwell's worldview reflected in the words of the Bush administration.
When we hear expressions like the evil ones, this kind of black and white view of good guys and bad guys.
But you're the good
either with
guys in
us
Bush's mind.
or against us. I understand we're the good guys.
But as long as you're the good guys, this is good for the Jews, isn't it?
It's not good for the Jews. We have to get God out of this conflict if we're going to have any chance to survive as a healthy, secure Jewish state.
Getting God out of this conflict is the last thing in the world that Reverend Jerry Falwell and the godfather of the Christian right, Ed McAteer, want. They were among those who wrote a letter of warning to President Bush that, quote, it would be morally reprehensible for the United States to be even-handed between democratic Israel and the terrorist-infested Palestinian infrastructure.